friends. This is another episode of the program Empire of Lies, in which we talk about manipulation and disinformation in the Russian media. Laughter as a weapon, how Solovyov turns the NATO threat into a farce. The program Evening with Vladimir Solovyov from September 11th, 2025 became a prime example of how Russian propaganda uses irony and mockery to mask the real escalation of the conflict. It would seem that we are talking about an extremely serious incident. Russian drones entered the airspace of Poland, a NATO ally. But in Solovyov's studio, this fact turns into a joke, into something like a cheap joke about foam blanks and Schrödinger's heroism. From threat to joke, from the first minutes, the host suggests that viewers not take seriously the Polish statements about dozens of drones flying into their skies. Oh, how it started. NATO is on edge. Trump is writing. But what happened? Solovyov quips. And then there's more. According to his version, Western fighters wasted millions on missiles, shooting down foam plastic. The incident itself is described as an absurd panic. 2 million missiles at foam plastic. This is a classic technique of Russian disinformation to emasculate the drama of the event itself, to turn a potential act of aggression into absurdity. The European viewer should remember, this is how the invasion of Soviet tanks into Hungary or Prague was explained as a mistake in Russian rhetoric, shifting attention to Europe's weakness. The further development of the discussion in the studio is based on ridiculing Western helplessness. Poland and NATO are shown as confused and paralyzed structures, incapable of even counting the number of drones. And Europe as a whole is like an alarmist who raises all the F-35s, but still can't figure out where the drones came from. Here, we see a deliberate transfer of responsibility. The aggressor, Russia, disappears from the map, and in its place stands the ridiculous West, which supposedly scares itself. Manipulation with a kind word. A characteristic moment is the mention that the Ukrainians themselves could have assembled such drones and deliberately dragged the Poles into the war. This version is convenient for Moscow. If even a shadow of doubt is strengthened in Europe, what if this is a provocation from Kyiv? The goal is achieved. This is how propaganda works, not to prove its truth, but to destroy trust in the facts. Europe as a theatre of Russian rhetoric. The episode where Solovyov actually suggests introducing Russian peacekeepers to Paris to restore order seems especially cynical. It sounds like a joke, but it is an important signal. Russian speakers use humor to legitimize the very idea of intervention. Behind the laughter lies a simple idea. Europe is not an independent player. It can be humiliated, reasoned with, and controlled. And I don't know, were there 10 of them or 20, and I don't know. And Merz also looked at it that way and said it seems Alice kaput. He said our air defense is Alice Chaser. That is, it didn't work at all. But Merz said it a little more politely, although his German is significantly worse than mine. First of all, I want to note that the European air defense, NATO air defense, worked, well, of course not as well as it should have, to prevent so many drones from entering Polish airspace early enough and also to attack targets in a timely manner. This will cause discussions in NATO. This, of course, will cause discussions in the European Union as well. This is a new quality of attacks that are being observed from Russia. We are ready and will be ready to defend ourselves. And we are determined and will be determined to significantly increase the combat readiness and defense capability of the European part of NATO. Why is this important for Europe? Solovyov's journalism does not work on internal logic, but on emotions, fear, fatigue, cynicism. It ridicules the threat in order to paralyze the will to resist. That is why Europe should perceive such programs not as a show for the domestic public, but as an element of information warfare. Today, foam drones, tomorrow, lost tanks in the Baltic states. Solovyov Solovyov himself hints at this, turning the future invasion into a harmless joke. But behind this irony lies a strategy of putting pressure on NATO, testing its borders and determination. For Europeans, the main lesson is simple. Russian propaganda does not argue with facts, it ridicules them. Laughter in Solovyov's hands is a weapon that should undermine confidence in the very principles of collective security. Europe cannot afford to be indifferent to this. Behind the irony lies a systematic attempt to destroy the unity of the alliance. You were on the program Empire of Lies. See you soon.